We are live you're coming from my cabin in northern Wisconsin, which is about as rustic as it gets. And Patty Vasquez is in Chicago. We're about as polar opposite in the Midwest as you can be right now. Uh,
Accurate.
what we do with office hours, I call this office hours because that's what we had in college when you didn't know the answers and you went to your teaching professor, your teaching aide, and you got the answers before the big test. So we're digging in with Patty. We do this for our subscribers. Everybody in the world sees what we're doing now live, but we send this to our subscribers. So if you don't want to miss these office hours, please think about subscribing to the Minocqua Brewing Company Times. It's $8 a month, just the price of a cup of coffee every couple of days, and so but anyways, Patty, I wanted to dig in. There's a lot going on. It's tomorrow is tax day, and your essay yesterday talked about you filling out your own taxes. And then I want to talk about some of the things you wrote about, like Trump's. Oh, that's it. You're done.
This is my no. I'm not done. I'm still working on it. This is how my accordion for all. I brought it to the office with me to keep going. These are my 2019 taxes. I'm going back. I'm like, what did I claim on? How did I? Yeah.
You said it's never happened once that you've gotten it in early.
Here we are. I told you I was working on a Sunday. I'm still working. Today's the 14th. I got till midnight tomorrow, baby.
Okay. All right. So
I'm not rich like that.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I'm not necessarily. I may have enough to hire the accountant, so I may.
Complicated layers.
There's a few complications. I got an FEC accountant. I got a business accountant. Oh my god. So I wanted to talk about some of the unmet promises that you kind of sprung up while you were doing your taxes, the unmet promises of the Trump regime. And then I want to segue to what happened to me today. The reason I am in a wood paneled room, which is my cabin, is because I was in court earlier today, and I wanted to let all our viewers know what happened. So let's talk about you're doing your taxes, you're filling out forms, and there's two things that you come across. One is this $1,000 gift to kids, and the other thing is this tipped wage thing. So tell me, kind of, to let the viewers know if they haven't read your essay yet, kind of what that made you feel like.
Well, look, let me just say this: like, for everybody, taxes are stressful because, one, they're basically saying, tell us what you made, tell us where you made it from, tell us what you think we owe, and we'll let you know if you're right or not. Like, and they already have all the information.
Yeah.
You know what I found out last year? My mom was going through a whole tax thing, and you can get the transcript of everything the government knows that you have, that you've made. All your 1099s, all your W-2s, all your investments. They have so now I just go through and I check off what they have and what I have. So if something's missing, I can track it down. But I don't. The boys are now 20 and 22. I already knew for years we're not going to get a tax credit for kids. I shouldn't have stopped at 2, Kirk. I would have but there's this new thing, and I remember hearing about it last year.
Republicans will get you on that. Republicans say that's why they keep on cranking out the baby.
Yeah, no kidding, right? I'm like, did you see? Okay, I'm going to go on a tangent. Today I'm going to be like the dog from Up. Squirrel, did you see where Fox News was upset? They had some experts saying, well, the problem is because birth rates are falling. Not enough 15 to 19-year-olds aren't having kids. We've been telling them for years to wait until they're ready. We were telling them to wait till they were adults, was what we were like, not just ready. At any rate, I got distracted. So last year, and I've heard this in the background, is it Hewlett Packard or is it Dell? One of the big computer billionaires. When I was writing the column, I had to double check, so now I still can't remember which one it is. But they had this big event at the White House about how they're going to start this fund. Every child's going to get $1,000. I think it's under 18. No, they hadn't been born like in certain years up until 2028. So they have $1,000 that will go towards either an education or buying a house or studying the trades, all these things. And I just thought, like, they're making families with young children, to your point. Oh, well, we get the tax credit. Now you get another $1,000 in the fund. And these incentives, this goes back to Hitler. People don't realize that Hitler, remember last year they wanted to have an award for moms and like for having more children. And I didn't put that in the column. It just strikes me because anytime we do that, people's brains shut off. But now when I watch, like, Turning Point just happened a few weeks ago, and they talked about, women's function is to have children and we're baby machines, and all these conversations over trans issues, like, unless someone can have a baby, they're not really a woman. Like, don't even get me started.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the $1,000 credit, or the $1,000 fund that's saved over the next few years for people, it's frustrating to a mom like me, and I just talked to another mother who has an adult child with severe disabilities. Like, after the age of 22, the resources are bare to none. We call it when the bus stops coming, right? Because Declan goes to therapeutic day school, and
Yeah.
the bus comes every day, and we know that he has some place where he has support, where he's cared for, where me and my husband can do other things around the house. We have no other respite care. My husband is a full-time caregiver for Declan. It is 24/7. He cannot go to the bathroom by himself. He cannot be alone with himself by himself for more than a couple minutes. Like, turning your back, you don't know if he's looks like gonna do it, but
Yeah.
more danger wise. But now it's like how he kind of harms himself, and that's a scary place. So anyway, those emotions come rushing up for me, filling out my taxes and seeing, someone's getting $1,000 fund, and then on top of the tax credit for kids, and then the tip wages part, which a lot of folks were so excited about. That was one of the reasons they were voting for him. We're not going to tax our tips anymore, which we know isn't true across the board. It's at a certain point. And I was a server. I was a server for over a decade. And I mean, like, they're already in an undervalued, underpaid position. So that was something that kind of set me off. I'm trying to write the essay. Declan's in the window watching cars. I had I was watching Ocean's 11. Like, it's all like this sort of like swirl of emotions. Here's a movie like I watched 20 years ago, and where I was then, and here I am now, and in this on the brink of really an economic. I don't think people realize how economically challenging the next few months are going to be. Right. So all of that was hitting me at the same time, right? Yeah. What was the question?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and I love it. I mean, you pulled from a lot of different things, but I think the overarching theme that you laid out in your essay was that, you know, the the promises that were given, economically, have not been met in any way, shape, or form. And at the end of the day, the working folks' problems are extremely more exacerbated now, a year and a half, I guess, after he was elected, than they were
Yeah.
while he was in office. And so, not only do we have chaos, international relation chaos, foreign chaos, we have working folks are suffering. You felt that, you felt that acutely while doing your taxes, and I'm sure many people watching right now are feeling that same pain. So that's why it resonated with me, and I think it probably resonated with lots of people in our audience.
And knowing that so much of this was done at the expense of poor working class families, so that the wealthiest could have these massive tax breaks. And there was a study, like a poll, I think yesterday, where people, working class families are saying, I think my taxes were too high. And even if I got a refund or paid less, it's all gone because of how much gas costs, how much groceries cost.
Yeah.
So it was all a lie. And we knew that. We knew it was a sham. We knew this whole thing was a grift. And yet we saw that we're spending so much time having to explain it. I mean, we shouldn't have to, but it's part of what we do is also letting folks know that agree with us, you're not crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't let them get to you.
So we had tariffs, which raised prices. We have oil, which is now raising prices because we can't get out of the Strait of Hormuz. And then the third thing is that fertilizer can't get out of the Middle East, which farmers in America relied on, and so they gotta buy more expensive fertilizer from somewhere else, which is going to raise our food prices yet again. So it's the basics, it's the basics: food, gas. It's going to be we're going to be in for a world of, and of course, healthcare, because the big beautiful bill took so many people off of Medicaid. So
And then SNAP benefits are cut, which then hurts both the families that are struggling and the farmers who provide the food that are paid for by SNAP. Do you see how I go crazy and getting it into like one?
Yeah.
we actually have a segment on Monday nights on a comedy show. I do a 3-minute rant, virtual comedy show, virtualcomedyshow.com, by the way, every Monday night. I do a 3-minute rant called the Patty Belt. Is Patty crazy? And I am definitely crazy.
All right. So, uh, you know, the theme is taxes and working class woes, which leads to the fact that if and this is Ben wrote an article yesterday. I don't know if you read it. Our other kind of our main guy, you Ben and me, kind of write for the Times mostly. He wrote yesterday that unless we elect true progressives coming in November, like in governor's races, and and flip the House, you know this we have to make drastic changes to help the working class, or else there's just going to be another rebellion 2 years from now or 4 years from now, and right wing populism will come springing right back, even though we might win. So we have to focus on issues for the working class. It's and affordability. I wanted to bring up an issue for the working class. I'm not in the working class, but because I've been caught up in the criminal justice system, I feel a special empathy for folks who generally are in the working class, who get caught up in the criminal justice system. So I kind of wanted to vent a little bit with you today about that, Patty. So
let me get my notepad. Go ahead.
So, well, in this, I mean, if you're listening to this, you're part of my mailing list, which is about 300,000 people, and I've written extensively about me being caught up in in the criminal justice system in Oneida County, Wisconsin, a rural county with a very small population of college-educated folks. Half of the homes on lakes up here are owned by folks in Chicago, Naperville, Minneapolis, Madison. It's a heavy tourist community, but the people who live here year round are in the generally the hospitality industry, which really pays horribly if you're a worker. So it's a very depressed area, and so I have battled with this right wing newspaper publisher it's called the Lakeland Times, and this guy, it's probably the worst, most like MAGA rag in the state of Wisconsin. It comes out 2 times a week. Uh, there's 8,000 subscribers, so it's understandable if you've never heard of it before. We have 210,000 Facebook followers, and we have about 170 active Substack subscribers. So we dwarf this little guy, but he's the paper of record in my little town, and he's if he ever writes something and picks on somebody, and he has before, in particular, he picked on a third grade teacher for teaching her class a book that included same sex marriage. So somebody sent me that op-ed where he just railed. The principal said they were grooming these kids to be, sexual deviants, and so I came back and I put his face in a rubber suit, and I photoshopped his general manager in a sadomasochistic scene where she was spanking him, and in the little quote it said, "Boss, is the reason you pick on this, school teachers for teaching books about same-sex marriage because you're ashamed of your own sexual deviances?" And then while he was bent over being spanked, his little call-out graphic cartoon box was, "If you want your end of the month bonus, you'll shut up and keep spanking me." so, so arguably not the classiest, but it was hilarious, and I wanted to strike back because he was so awful. His homophobia was in a public newspaper against a teacher who couldn't defend herself. So I got him back. When I came back to Minocqua, I was hauled to jail for releasing that post, that photoshopped post, and it hauled in jail and charged for criminal defamation. That was October of 2024. There is a lawsuit. There's three Supreme Court cases that invalidate criminal defamation in the country. Those three are, first of all, it's New York Times versus Sullivan, which is the landmark case that kind of defines what defamation is. Uh, and and then there's another one called Hustler Magazine versus Jerry Falwell, which kind of defines that as long as it's satire, it falls within in the your right to free speech, which obviously my cartoon was. And then there's the unique one that the other ones people might have heard about. This one is called Garrettson versus Louisiana, which uh, basically ruled that all defamation, the only way to award damages, if somebody's been defamed, the only way that you can like pay them back for being defamed is through money. You can't actually criminalize defamation because if somebody's lost their honor, putting the guy that hurt them in jail doesn't solve anything. It basically said that all defamation had to be a civil issue which awards in damages and not criminal. So the fact that there's a criminal defamation statute still on the books in Wisconsin is only because no politician has struck it off the books yet. It just hasn't been addressed at the Supreme Court level.
Wow.
So this, and it's only been used like 100 times in the last 40 years. And the majority of those times are in rural areas where some powerful, sheriff or big daddy Warbucks, finds this statute and screws somebody who can't defend themselves. So I was put in jail. This should have been dismissed, given everything that I told you. This should have been dismissed out of hand, but it wasn't, because this judge, circuit court judges, and I'm not really gonna. I kind of want to disparage this judge a little bit, but she just did me kind of a solid, so I'm not going to disparage her. But circuit court judges in rural areas don't have to be experts on the First Amendment, right? I mean, they usually don't. They get domestic violence cases and meth cases. They don't really get so. Arguably, she didn't really know, so she didn't dismiss it right away. But because she didn't dismiss it, was I was placed like on bond until we had to until I got a hearing. It was ultimately dismissed because she did the right thing. She saw the Supreme Court precedents, but I was on bond. So fast forward from October 2024 to June 27th, 2025, last summer, I was giving a political speech, and I was giving a political speech about corruption in Oneida County, and out walks the publisher of the Lakeland Times, Greg Walker, who is across the street from my tap room. I was giving a speech about corruption, and so I told my audience, and it was a pretty boisterous audience. I might have given him like a sip of our THC drink, and as the beginning of our so we were having a good time at that point. So I said, by the way, this is the leader of corruption in Oneida County, Greg Walker, and everybody started booing the guy. He pulls out his phone. He calls 911.
Oh my God.
And he says, I'm being threatened and they are on my property. They're on my property threatening me, Kirk and a bunch of his goons. We were across the highway in my own beer garden. So he lied to the police dispatcher, and then he pulled out his phone again and called his buddy Sheriff Grady Hartman.
Is the first call recorded? I just need to know.
It was. So yep. I put it on Facebook. It's hilarious. I have the voice. We got the voice from the police station, but I had a picture of a customer took a picture. So we clearly show him across the street, him saying they're on my property or like threatening me, a complete lie. So he also calls Grady Hartman, who then gets the Oneida County Sheriff's Department, the Minocqua Police Department, the Woodruff Police Department, the town next over, and the Vilas County Sheriff's Department to descend on my tap room and arrest 6 of my customers for whatever, violating the peace, disorderly conduct, but arrest me for felony witness intimidation because I'm still in the criminal justice system from this thing that should have been dismissed, which ultimately was dismissed. But because I'm still in the system, and there's no doubt the sheriff is not this smart. There's no doubt that Greg called this hotshot lawyer in he called this hotshot lawyer in Waukesha, who said, charge him with felony witness intimidation. It's so they threw me in jail, and because it was a Friday night, and if you get charged with a felony, they can't just like let you out on bond. So I spent the night in jail. They called a judge on a Saturday, which almost never happens, but somebody was like, they did Kirk dirty with this. So that judge dropped the felony witness intimidation charge on a Saturday. I got out within 24 hours. I still had to spend the night in jail. But the one charge stuck, and that charge was bail jumping because I was on bail and I was charged with another crime. And so that charge stuck. So now I'm charged with disorderly conduct and bail jumping. So fast forward a year later, almost a year later, I mean, we have a hearing where Fred said, my lawyer Fred today, or like a couple weeks ago, we agreed to plead guilty for disorderly conduct, even though I did nothing wrong. But the alternative was she agreed to drop the bail jumping charge if I pled guilty to disorderly conduct. The bail jumping charge is a jail sentence if you're convicted. And so if we had, and then so if I didn't take this plea, I would have had to go to a jury trial of 9 of my not peers, because I don't live in Oneida County, even though my business is in Oneida County. And I've been through that before. This is about as MAGA of an area as you get. And I've lost in a jury trial before because the chips are stacked against me because I'm not very well liked in this area. And so if I didn't take this plea agreement, I would have had a jury trial, and they could have decided that I did indeed jump bail and put me in jail.
Wow.
And this is the crux of the issue and why working folks get screwed. I had a bail jumping charge, even though the case against me was completely frivolous. It took a year for it to get cleared. And so this bail jumping charge, only in Wisconsin and like 2 or 3 other states does a bail jumping charge still stick after you've been cleared of the actual crime that you had to actually get bail on. So even though I was cleared of all wrongdoing, I could still go to jail for bail jumping of the initial issue that got cleared. And so I said, Fred, this is wrong. And he's like, it's one of the worst parts about the criminal justice system in Wisconsin, because if somebody gets caught up in like a marijuana charge, and it's and has got bail on that, and if it's felony, it's even worse. But if you get pulled over for speeding while you're in the criminal justice system, that could be considered bail jumping, and so you could be thrown in jail for the smallest of things, because bail jumping is like a bad thing, even if it's a minor infraction. So there are so many people that can never leave the system because they just have bad luck and they have this bail stuff hanging over their heads. And so ultimately, we pled guilty today, and I felt like I had to. And
Yeah.
in order to, I chose, a $500 fine and a permanent record of disorderly conduct that will be on my file forever. Now I'm blemished, and in the criminal justice, I have a misdemeanor, B-level misdemeanor, which I'm okay with. It's a bit of a badge of honor for me, I guess. But I had to choose that over taking the risk of facing a jury trial and spending another $50,000 in lawyer fees, to potentially still end up landing in jail.
Well, and I think what you've been, talking about this morning, I saw your video, which you also were a little more colorful about the possibility of having to face a jury of your peers. What you brought up though is, imagine somebody else who doesn't have the resources to pay. We even like in when it comes to, let's, like you mentioned, traffic violation. If somebody was out, and they got pulled over for speeding, then they're vulnerable. It's weaponizing the system against people who can't afford, right? This is what we were talking earlier about the way the tax structure is that it's all designed to keep people where they are and to keep empowering those who have the money, have the connections to call 911 and get their buddy to come arrest you. I mean, it's insane. And then for people who are working class, you mentioned it's going to be on your permanent record. You're a businessman, it's a little bit different for you. It adds flavor to all the stuff that you do, right? But somebody else who's got submitting a job application and now information is so readily available, that's going to pop as soon as they do a background check.
Yeah, yeah. It's much worse for somebody who's just trying to get by and get a job, and they got a criminal thing on their record. Absolutely. Does it affect when I apply for a loan? Absolutely. Every time you apply for insurance, you apply for a loan, they look at your criminal record, and they look at your credit history, and they look at whether or not you have any current being sued or not. And so uh, definitely, I shouldn't say Republicans, but the Republican Party of Wisconsin knows that as long as I'm in as long as I'm being sued, it's harder for me to get loans and to get investments. So yeah,
You
it's rough.
You know,
It's
I
rough.
just I just realized is that because look, we have there are several people in the Chicagoland area who are going through federal charges because they were protesting at Broadview, including
Yeah, yeah,
Democratic committeeman Michael Rabbit. Charges were dropped against a woman named Kat Sharp and a couple other people, but imagine how much money he's putting into that. And again, this if it's a federal charge, we saw what happened in Texas with being defined as domestic terrorists and these chat groups on Slack, but I do think that one of the ways back after this, with lead, whether it's the cases you were talking about as something for Democrats when they regain control, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, we need to do better by people, working class families, poor families,
yeah,
and we need to do something. I think we need to address what's happened during this administration, which includes charges of disorderly conduct, because that was, I mean. There, I don't know if there's a way to clear records because it was under this,
yeah,
fascist regime.
yeah. So the next, every time I talk about this, I say the next Mamdani that comes to Wisconsin or Illinois. It might be Pritzker already, who knows? But the next real progressive person that is able to get things done and change, we have to not only address affordability issues, but we have to address criminal justice issues. All you know forms around keeping working class people down, and there has to be a sea change. We can't just do it in increments and bits and parts anymore, because we have the inequality is so vast at this stage. There needs to be huge things that happen, not just let's give a tax credit here or something like that there or something like that. We have to do big things in order to get the working class, back to the middle class, and
Yeah.
it makes me want to fight, because it makes me want to run, sort of, because I just I don't see it's in terms of like the governor's race right now. I can't see that person yet. That person hasn't emerged, and
I agree with you. I feel the same way. And when it comes to the presidency and the potential candidates, not only progressive, but I mean like what the national issues are, but international issues, and we need somebody who is not going to continue to fund bombing places like Iran and Gaza and
yeah, we
yeah,
can't. We got to have somebody that speaks up against APAC, and J Street. We
this is
have
what I'm saying.
and it's always hard, because we get called, I get called an anti-Semite as soon as I bring it up, but we have to have a progressive that is willing to stand up to Netanyahu. We
Yep.
have to, and so we're gonna keep on talking about it, you and me and this channel on Substack and all of our socials, I try to hope that our voices are loud enough to offset some of the money that's being spent in politics, and I hope enough voices share what we're doing, and stop settling for left of center as the solution for how do we fix America and how do we fix Wisconsin. We have to be way more left of center, way more left.
I know we were planning on talking about, but one of the things I'm looking at with Turkey and with happened with Orban is, or I mean Hungary, all the things, right? All the places in the world where there seems to be a shift. I don't even Ireland. Again, I told you I felt like the dog from Up, squirrel. Um, but but I am it's much, maybe it's my piece for next week about, what it took was someone from inside the Conservative Party
Yeah.
there to overthrow Orban. And then part of that makes me a little bit concerned is that
Okay.
we don't have far enough, progressive enough candidates or, leaders. And it might be somebody from inside the Conservative
Somebody
Party.
said it's like what they just did in Hungary was basically after 20 years of Trump, they just elected a Mitt Romney, and a Mitt Romney sounds a lot better than a Trump. And so and in Ben's article yesterday, he explained it too. It's like right wing populism is still populism. So
Yeah.
people who are suffering want a fix. And so racism, bigotry is how the right wing populism kind of becomes the fix for the working class. But, healthcare, education, and good jobs are the left wing populism. And so if we just if you focus on actually domestic issues that uplift the working class, that is left wing economic populism. And it doesn't need to be called socialism or even leftist liberalism. It's basically just focusing on the working class, and it's not that radical. But that person to me is Mamdani, and he gives me so much hope. We just need, Wisconsin needs that, and I don't see that quite yet.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was great. I'm excited. I mean, I'm sorry for the kind of day you've had. So sorry about that.
Well,
You got me fired up. What I'm saying is you got me fired up.
Thank you. And one thing you shouldn't be sorry about is I'm in God's country right here. And I had a shirt that nobody bought that said, "The college educated deserve God's country too." So
Well, I'm not going to miss a summer of not going up. I mean, I'm not going to have another summer where I didn't go up to Minocqua Brewing Company because I haven't been there yet.
gotta
And
do it.
let's do a comedy show. I'm saying it right now on your Substack Live. Comedy. I've had 3 resist and persist comedy shows in Chicagoland area, and they've all sold out. Let's bring it to Minocqua, whether it's at your place or you find
half your audience will just be up here in their second home, so it's all
exactly.
good. All right, thanks so much, Patty. We'll
Thank you.
talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Bye.